Hey everyone, Kyle here, and in today's tutorial, as I promised, I was going to be making a video on how to use Reaper to place your audio description lines, and then also how to record your audio description lines. So I'm going to be going over everything you need to know, settings-wise and workflow-wise on how to use Reaper efficiently to record and place audio descriptions alongside a video. When we open up Reaper, you'll notice, first of all, my Reaper may look a little bit different than yours. For starters, the time display down here at the bottom won't look like this. Yours may look different than mine, and the reason for that is because your time display may have, like, I forget how it looks, but I think it's like hours, minutes, seconds, and I think it's got like something to do with beats. By default, a lot of these digital audio workstations are tailored to people who like make music. But of course, you don't have to stick with that. You could change the time display to be whatever you want. So to change this, we want to right click, and then we want to make sure, let me find it. Yeah, so you want to make sure that the thing that says hours, minutes, seconds, and frames is selected. So make sure that that is selected, and it will look like this. This, on the left of the slash, is going to be your main time sort of thing. To the right of that, I'm not entirely sure. Let me just double check. Yeah, so to the right of that, I do believe this is minutes and seconds, but don't quote me on that. All I care about is just this one off to the left side here, and you'll see why that is so important in a bit. All right, let's go into, before we do anything else, go into project settings. So go to File and Project Settings, or I believe that's Option Enter. When we open project settings, the first thing we want to do is do project sample rate. Make sure it is set to 48,000 hertz. 48,000 hertz, it is like the gold standard. And then leave all of this alone. Time base for items, envelopes, and markers, make sure it is set to time. Time base for tempo, time, signature, envelopes, make sure that is also set to time as well. Let's see, is there anything else? No, there isn't. Media. So make sure under recording, your audio format for new recordings is set to WAV. Make sure your WAV bit depth is set to 24-bit PCM. Let's see, is there anything else? No, it looks good. The most important thing is if you go to the video tab. So typically I will have it set to 23.976. However, today we're going to be working with the 24 frames per second frame rate, so make sure you have it set to 24 FPS. All right, so you have a couple of options now here. You can either click OK, or you can click on Save as Default Project Settings. Now, if you are working constantly on projects that you know are going to have like the same settings, like the same frame rate, or anything like that, you could just click on Save as Default Project Settings, and then you can call it a day. Next, we want to import our video. And by the way, we want to set up our tracks first, actually, before we do anything further. So to set up a track, to create a new track, what you want to do is double click on anywhere in this dark gray section on the left of the timeline, and that will create a track. You can then double click again to make a new track. So typically I'd recommend for a project, you probably want to make anywhere between 2 to 3 tracks. Let me explain. Your top track will be your program audio. Your middle track will be where your AD dialogue goes. And then optionally, your third track will sort of be your staging track. What do I mean by staging? Well, so Reaper is a multi-track recording environment. That means you don't have the flexibility like with something like Audacity or even Adobe Audition with a dedicated waveform view. So you will need to record things more or less in place. Now, if you're someone who's accustomed to recording in a waveform-only environment, and then you do all your editing in waveform, you export your file, and then you then re-import it back into a multi-track session, that's going to be a bit of a jarring experience if you're transitioning from that to, say, Reaper or Logic, which is the case for me. I still have to figure out a good workflow for my own stuff, but generally I feel it's a good idea to have a staging track so that importantly, what you can do on the staging track is you can solo it, and then when you do your recordings, the audio of the original video is not going to distract you while you're recording and then editing. Then when you get to placing your AD, you can then unsolo it, bring it up to your second track, and then place it at whatever time codes that you want. Which, by the way, in this video as well, I'm going to showcase a way to make it visually easier to place lines. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and import our media file. To do that, we want to select the track, which will be lit up on the left side and as well as on the timeline, as you can see. You want to go up to the Insert menu, go to Media File, and then it'll go to, whatever our folder is, so it's a demo folder. And we're going to import our episode of Al-Rawabi School for Girls, which is great. So, after you've imported it, you can see we were brought all the way to the end of our project. And this is a great opportunity for me to show you why Reaper is just honestly a little bit easier to work with compared to something like Audacity. If you double click on the time display down here, a go-to window will pop up. Do you see where I'm going with this? Because in Audacity, you had to actually use the selection time thing, which was a real pain in the ass. So if you wanted to go to the beginning of your project in Reaper, all you have to do is just type 0. Press enter, and you'll be brought to the beginning of your project. One other thing that I forgot to do is to cover setting your microphone and audio settings. So we need to open Reaper settings. So, however you do that, go to settings. Then go under the audio section, go under where it says device. By default, this won't be checked. So you won't have the ability to choose your input and output device independently. I recommend you check this. Allow use of different inputs and output devices so that you can select your input device as, say, your microphone, and then your output as, and then you can even go in here and choose your output. So in my case, I just have it set to my system default output, which in this case, at this moment, is set to the Telestream audio capture device, which in my previous video I explained was linked to my screen recorder. Okay, sorry about that little detour. I just thought I'd quickly go in there and just explain that a little bit. Okay, next thing I want to talk about before anything else, before we get to placing our AD lines, is recording levels. So recording levels are extremely important. They're like the make or break for your narration. So honestly, recording levels are a little difficult to explain, a little complicated, but here's how I like to think about it. When you're recording audio, you want to make sure that your audio is no quieter than negative 15 dB. So a good, healthy, quiet zone is anywhere between negative 18 to negative 15. Louder than that should probably be anywhere between negative 12 to absolute negative 6. If you're getting really, really loud when you're recording, negative 6 should be where you're peaking. Anything higher than that, you'll want to make sure you turn your gain down before you record. The reason for that is if you end up sending me a raw dialogue stem for me to mix and master for you, That'll just make it a lot easier for me. It'll give me a bit more headroom to work with for compression, EQ, limiting, etc. So make sure you dial in your recording options or your recording levels before you start recording and sending off your files. Because the last thing you want is to record a bunch of lines, get your file rejected for being too quiet, and then you'd have to go back in and then re-record all of your lines again. So yeah, that would suck. So definitely try to dial that in before you get nose deep in anything. So yeah. Okay, let's go to our next task. Our next task is going to be recording and placing your lines. Now, for this video, I'm not actually going to record anything, although I'm going to record something very, very briefly to demonstrate how to record. We're going to be using our staging track, which is track number 3, which doesn't have a name, which, by the way, you can actually name your tracks. So if we double click on a track, we can actually name it. Let's just name this program. Let's go to track 2 and name it AD, dialogue, and then name track 3 as, let's call it staging. Before we jump into anything else as well, I want to mention that this right here, let's go to our program track. So to the right of the track label, there is a gain knob or a volume knob. And what you can do is you can change the volume of your tracks. So typically what I'd like to do is right click on your volume knob, and I'd like to typically set this to -10 dB. That way you're not distracted while you're trying to edit and place your AD. It's not too loud. You can still kind of hear the program, but you'll be able to hear your AD a little bit better. Okay, so now that we have that set up, let's talk about how we can record our audio. In Reaper, you need to arm your tracks for recording. To do that, we want to click on this little record arm disarm button to the left of the track label. What that's going to do, and here's just giving you a heads up, as soon as I click this, my voice is going to double. I'm going to mute this in editing so that you don't get to hear it for long. So if I click on the record arm disarm, yeah. So I'm going to mute this. You can see it says staging, it's in red. I would turn off recording, like monitoring, by clicking on this speaker right here. It says record monitoring on. Click it once. Now it'll turn red. It'll say record monitoring auto. Click it again, and it will say record monitoring off. So now you also get to see like where you're peaking in terms of your recording levels. So we can even stretch this out just to get a more like refined view of exactly where we're peaking. And right now, our normal talking voice is currently peaking at around, I don't know, let's say close to -6, around -10. So we're good to go. Let's just bring this back up just to make it a little easier. Okay, so what I would recommend you do is, first of all, I would solo our staging track, and then I would go anywhere on the timeline, and then I would either hit record. You can even hover over the record button to see what the shortcut is. So in this case, the record button is Command R. When you press Command R, what's going to happen, again, you want to make sure your track is selected. When you press Command R, your recording will begin. And then what you can do is then you can hit the space bar to stop recording. So if you go silent, and then you hit the space bar, here is your final audio track. Now, this is a bad example. Here's how I would typically record audio. So let's jump back a little bit, and let's hit record. and stay silent for maybe like 3 seconds. Okay, and staying silent for about 3 seconds allows you to more easily cut your audio at the proper points. I'm going to show how to do that briefly with this clip, and then I'm also going to show how to do that with actual lines that you'll actually record, which I will use with my non-cut files, unlike from my previous video, which I kind of took a shortcut there. So let's go ahead and stop recording. Let's give it like 3 seconds. Okay, we've hit the space bar. So we have this clip, right, that we've recorded. How do we cut how do we cut our clip so that we have a proper length of silence? There's not too much silence, and your dialogue starts right away. Well, Reaper has this handy, like, I don't know how to describe it. There's these like thin dotted lines on your waveform that tell you where all of your zero crossings are. And so if you want to cut right up to here, for example, what you can do is you can hit the S key to split your clip, and then you could just go to the part that was split and then boom, get rid of it. Now let's go to the end. One annoyance I have with Reaper is like scrolling is a huge pain in the ass. Let's go all the way to the end. And then what we can do is click on this part right here, press the S key, delete, and now we've got a perfect line. Okay, let's go to the beginning. Again, I love this go-to feature. So let's go ahead and play it. Okay, and staying silent for about 3 seconds allows you to more easily cut. Okay, so you get the point. Let's jump into what we're actually supposed to do, and that is bring in our lines. Now, Reaper is different in a way. Like I said, you're going to be recording everything directly in your session, so that means no importing. However, if you are recording things externally, then importing things is going to be extremely easy. And I'm also going to take this time to show off a Reaper script that makes placing lines an absolute breeze. If you don't know, typically I will upload AD scripts as subtitle files. Because of that, I've been so used to using something like Adobe Audition or even Audacity to convert SRT files into region markers that show you your start and your endpoints. And I actually ended up having ChatGPT make me a Reaper script, which I'll be more than happy to share with you guys. Let's actually disarm this track. So I'm going to briefly demonstrate how to use the script. I'll probably make a separate video that shows how to set up the script and get it working. But typically what you want to do is go into Actions, Show Action List, and then in here, you should be able to click on New Action and then create a new action. Let me open up actually the script. It's like right here. This is literally the entire Reaper script. And I'll publish it on the web. You guys can grab it, you can play with it. But to run the script, you just double click and then choose your SRT file. Reaper should then pop up and say, it'll say regions added successfully. Click OK, and it will take you right back to your project. As you can see, all of our markers are here, and it will tell you exactly where everything needs to be placed. Let's drag in our non-cut AD lines so that I can then demonstrate how I would go about cutting AD lines for a particular like placement, if that makes sense. Okay, so what we need to do is pay attention to where our dotted line is. So here is our nearest zero crossing. We can, however, go a bit further than that. We can just use our right arrow key, and even if you don't cut before the zero crossing, Reaper will add in a short crossfade. So you don't really have to worry about too much. So all we have to do is just click on, like, hit the S key and it will split the clip. Okay. Go to the end. So at the end, what you can do is click on the dotted line. You can either hit the dotted line, or you could take the end of your clip and drag it inwards. And what that will do is it's kind of like splitting, but not really. So let's go ahead and place our first line. So here is our first line right here. Our first line is placed right there. See, look at that. There you go. So there's our endpoint. I know it's hard to see that endpoint line right there, but there's our endpoint. So let's go ahead and unsolo and then play test. So let's go to the beginning. I don't know of a different way to do this, but anyways. A red letter N unfolds into a spectrum of colors. And again, it's okay to leave a little bit of silence at the end of your clip, even if it may go over the endpoint. Just make sure you don't have your actual dialogue going over the endpoint, especially if it steps on dialogue. Okay, let's go to, let's tackle our second line. Oh, actually, I forgot. We should probably move this clip up. Let's drag it up. A red letter N unfolds into a spectrum of colors. Okay, great. Let's go to, let's tackle our second line. Let's actually get rid of this staging. Let's get rid of this the staging track. We don't need it. Let's do line number 2 now. Again, I know I probably don't need to show how to do every single line, but I'll do it anyways. We can probably cut like maybe right around here. So split, delete, and then what we can even do is put it on this marker right here. Also, in case you didn't notice, I'm holding down the mouse button. It even tells you where your position is. So if you're referencing time codes from like a time codes file, then it'll tell you exactly where you are, assuming your project frame rate is set correctly. All right, awesome. And then let's drag this out. And you can see our endpoint. So our endpoint is like right here. So this line ends extremely early, which is fine. You know, endpoints aren't like the be-all, end-all, unless if a line is specifically marked as like, you have to end it here, but it can start between like anywhere up to the endpoint, if that makes sense. That's useful for things like if there's a sound cue or a music cue that you kind of want to have timed perfectly with a piece of 80 dialogue. All right, let's go to our next line. So line number 3. Let's plop it down. And let's move right. And let's split. It gets really easy once you get the hang of this. I'm honestly not going to use Reaper though. I don't like it. All right, let's and then also we can even split the clip like right here as well. So split and delete. Let's do these a little bit quicker. So line number 4. You can just watch me do it at this point. For here, okay, so I'm going to butt in. So for here, we actually have a case where we have a small mouth click. For this particular situation, what we can do is hold our right arrow key to go forward. And we'll just go like right after the mouth click, like right there. Press the S key, and it will split. Let's bring it back to our beginning marker. Again, it tells you where it starts. And we go all the way to the end. And as you can see, here is where our AD line is supposed to end. You can see it ends a little earlier. And there you go. Let's do line number 5. So you probably want to split right here. Again, we'll play test all of this after. And then go to the end. So here is where our AD is supposed to end. We'll just drag it all the way up here. Actually, we'll cut it right up to here. And there you go. That is how you place AD. Let's go ahead and play test. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention as well is Reaper supports reference videos. So I forget how to do this. I think it's under... Oh yeah, if you go under View, you should be able to bring up the video menu, or it's Command-Shift-V. Yeah, so for this case, we'll just play the reference video alongside our project. So let's play test. A red letter N unfolds into a spectrum of colors. Words in Arabic appear, a Netflix original series. Produced by Filmizion. Daytime, a fair-skinned girl in white and gray shoes and a gray dress skirt takes slow steps near a parked school bus.
School used to be my favorite place.
She wears a brown backpack slung over one shoulder, her dark brown hair spilling down the back of her shirt.
I used to love going to school.
All right, you got the point. So you could see our lines are placed perfectly. And like I said, if you're someone who's recording and placing, markers are definitely going to be helpful for you so that you don't have to like keep going back to this like time code sheet and be like, what time code are we at again? So I'm definitely going to put the script out there for you to use. It was generated by ChatGPT. There were a few issues with it, and eventually we were able to get it to work. So now that we have our lines placed, what do we do now? Well, one thing that you can do is, and this is honestly the easiest, is you could go to File, Render, and under Render, what you want to do is, okay, before you do that, make sure your track is selected that you want to render. So our AD dialog track was selected. You want to name it something useful. Let's call it Demo Stem Reaper. Save it in an area where you'll be able to find it. So I have it saved in the Reaper Media folder as Demo Stem Reaper. Make sure your sample rate is 48,000 hertz. Make sure your channels is set to mono. And this should really be all that you need to do. Down here under primary audio format, make sure wave is selected. Wave bit depth is 24-bit PCM, and you should be able to leave the rest of this alone. Yeah, okay, this is why we double check our settings. Source, you want to make sure it's selected track stems, right? You want to make sure that this is selected, not the master mix. My bad. Once you do that, and you make sure all of your other settings are correct, make sure you click on Render One File. Reaper's going to pop up. It's going to say, hey, the file already exists. So we can just click on overwrite. What it's going to do then is it's going to play your dialogue stem more or less in real time, although it's going to play it at like, I don't know, like really quickly. Let's just wait until it gets to the end. And there you go. It should now be finished. So, if we head to our Reaper Media folder, here's our demo stem Reaper file, and we can just open it up. A red letter N unfolds into a spectrum of colors. Words in Arabic appear, a Netflix original series. Produced by Filmizion. You got the point. This would be then the file that you would then submit off to, well, me or whoever's going to be mixing your dialogue into the audio description mix. Another way to do it, if you didn't feel like making sure that your selected track was selected in the render settings, is you could delete your program track, go up to File, Render, and then even if you select Master Mix, you can still render out your dialogue stem. Let me show you. It's actually going to go a bit quicker. Yep, see, it actually completed in like a split second, just because it didn't have to go through the entire program to just render just that like 20 seconds of dialogue. So that's great. To confirm that we actually have our stem, let's go ahead and import it into another track. We just take it and drag it in. And you can see it lines up pretty nicely. So look at that. Let's play both of these side by side. It's going to sound really weird. A red letter N unfolds into a spectrum of colors. See, they're pretty much synced up and good to go. Okay, I believe that's all there is to know about Reaper and how to get set up. Record, place, render. Reaper is honestly a DAW that, like I said, I'm never really going to use. The only reason I'm going to use it is to create markers to import into Logic Pro, which I might make a video on how to do that as well. So if you found this video helpful, you know what to do. Hit that like button, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me on Discord.